Hey, friends. The tantalizing possibilities of what if. What if Michael J. Fox couldn't get away from his commitments to the hit sitcom Family Ties, and the filmmakers of Back to the Future had to go through with Eric Stoltz, their backup choice for Marty McFly? Would have been a very different movie, wouldn't it? Or what if, instead of William Shatner, Gene Roddenberry had hired Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0 for the role of Captain James T. Kirk? Would have been a different Kirk for sure. Probably played along the same lines of Jeffrey Hunter's Captain Pike. Would that Captain Kirk have been as well loved as Shatner's Kirk? Would Star Trek have become the cultural touchstone we know today? And what if, instead of Harrison Ford, Spielberg and Lucas went with one of their other options for Indiana Jones? Tom Selleck. He tried out for the part. He was in the running, but Selleck was tied down to Magnum P.I. So they ultimately got Ford and passed on Tom. But what would a Tom Selleck Indy have been like? His screen tests for Raiders of the Lost Ark are available to watch, but those only offer a hint, and the scenes are very unpolished compared to what could be done on a proper film shoot. I don't say that Tom Selleck would have been better than Ford, but again, what if? The Indy we know and love today would have been a very different guy, huh? After losing out on the role of Jones, Selleck was given a sort of consolation prize, a role in another film that had him playing an American adventurer overseas in a past era. That's right. This time we're talking about High Road to China from 1983. Our story goes like this. It's the early 1920s, and Eve Tozier is vamping it up in a Cairo hotel when she's informed that her father's business partner is going to have him declared legally dead so he could take over their company. If that happens, all Eve's money will be gone, so she has to find her dad, who gallivanted off to somewhere in Afghanistan. To get to her dad and prove he's alive, she has to get an airplane. She proceeds to hire this guy, a fellow American named O'Malley, who fought in World War I as a fighter pilot. Now he's a drunk and runs a small flying school with two beat-up old planes. After a lot of dickering, Eve hires both O'Malley and the planes. She flies one, and O'Malley and his mechanic, Struts, flies the other. Together, they head off into the frontier to find Eve's dad. They also fly into a war zone, seeing as how the Brits and the Afghans are duking it out. When they land near an Afghan camp, they're captured by the local warlord. He wants O'Malley to fly his planes over the British Army camp and drop bombs on them. Our heroes have to escape and carry on the search, which leads them over the Himalayas into China and another, albeit local, war. O'Malley and Eve are bickering and arguing and carrying on because, obviously, they've fallen in love. All along the way, outside forces are trying to put the kibosh on the mission. Will our heroes find Eve's dad? Will the planes be able to make it to China and back? And where can I meet a chick like Eve? At the time this movie was made, there were a lot of Raiders wannabes on the large screen and the small. Tales of the Gold Monkey, Bring 'em Back Alive, King Solomon's Mines, Romancing the Stone, and on and on. High Road to China was classed as just another Raiders knockoff, which is a shame. It isn't really one. The MacGuffin here is not some supernatural relic or an archaeological dig through ancient ruins, but an adventure to find a missing person. High Road to China was based on a book by author John Cleary, who said he was deeply disappointed in the end result. The filmmakers had to trim some things and condense a few others, even eliminating a main character, and he wasn't pleased with that. But director Brian G. Hutton was no fool. While he didn't have tons of credits, he had previously helmed the immortal classics Where Eagles Dare and Kelly's Heroes, and he acted in a bunch of westerns too. He gave up Hollywood after this picture and went into real estate. A real loss for movies, if you ask me. Here, most of the action was shot in the former Yugoslavia, where Hutton shot Kelly's heroes, and that was a good choice. Well, the time of year meant it was pretty chilly for everybody. The variety of different landscapes helped make the picture more realistic. High Road to China was kind of a throwback movie. The idea was to make something not dissimilar to classic romantic comedy adventure films like It Happened One Night or The 39 Steps, where a couple meet, are thrown together, and argue constantly before realizing they've fallen in love with each other. So many famous names were attached to this project. Roger Moore was the original choice for O'Malley. Both Jacqueline Bisset and Bo Derek were options for Eve Tozier. Walter Huston was slated to direct. None of that came to pass. In our cast, wow, we have Tom Selleck, of course, and man, does he bring it. Funny or serious, Selleck does have this capacity for nuance, for conveying what his character is thinking or feeling without even using any dialogue. And that's one of the reasons he's always been so well loved. He does that so far under the radar, it's so subtle you see it without even realizing you're seeing it. He's always been a much better actor than he's ever been given credit for. In fact, at the time, he was seen as the new Clark Gable. When this movie was made, Selleck was trying to be a TV star as well as a movie star, and that didn't pan out. He starred in movies, sure, I've reviewed at least 2 of them here on the channel, Runaway and Her Alibi, but the vast majority of his success has been on the small screen, which is a real shame for a talent like Selleck's. Unlike, say, George Clooney, he never made the leap to the big screen in a way that cemented him as a movie star actor. Here he plays the adventurer and he fits the role like a glove. Oh, what if? Would have been great to see him play this character again in a sequel or play a similar character in something else. And then there was Bess Armstrong, again a very talented actress, but big screen success eluded her. I remember her best from her role as Angela Chase's mom in the TV series My So-Called Life. Man, I love that show. She plays the spunky flapper heiress so damned well, and she's gorgeous to boot. She wound up meeting her future husband on the set of High Road to China, a second AD. Their marriage was pretty short-lived, though. And for modern viewers, I want to point out that Eve is not a girl boss. She's hard-charging at times, she's in control, but she makes mistakes and has to learn a few lessons along the way. Like Karen Allen from Raiders of the Lost Ark, or Christy Swanson in The Phantom. She's the perfect combination of sassy and strong, but feminine, and that makes her a good match for the hero without overshadowing him. And there's none of the smug superiority that is a hallmark of the modern girl boss. In other words, a strong female character, but in the best and truest sense of that term. The character of Eve Tozier is a classic role, and Bess Armstrong owns it. Jack Weston plays O'Malley's sidekick and mechanic, Struts. You know this guy, been in tons of stuff. He's fine here as the friend of our hero. Wilford Brimley ate his Quaker oats and avoided the beatus long enough to play Eve's father. Brian Blessed, God is alive! That's right, Dr. Rowland, and later mentor on Space 1999, among many other things. But that's how I always think of him, as Dr. Rowland. I don't know. He's great here as the chieftain who captures our heroes. He's so larger than life, he fits the part perfectly. You'll also spot this guy in the early going, Michael Sheard. He's in several Doctor Who stories. One of my favorites was this one, Pyramids of Mars. He appeared in The Empire Strikes Back and later played this guy in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He also played him in an episode of The Tomorrow People, and again in The Dirty Dozen, The Next Mission, a TV movie. He seemed to be the go-to guy for that role, didn't he? I don't know why, but it seemed like he was. And finally, Robert Morley is here. He has some comedic scenes as a British bureaucrat, which were added after a test screening. Okay, sure. Tom Selleck is not Harrison Ford. These planes could never have made the journey depicted in the movie, not in 100 years. They simply didn't have the power or range required, but you won't care. This movie has everything, and on a large, grand scale. Large armies, big battles, well-realized period crowds. There's even a dogfight with biplanes. If Raiders of the Lost Ark is a 4-paw picture, and it is, I'd say High Road to China is at least 3 1/4 paws. It has everything this kind of movie should have, minus the supernatural MacGuffin, which you won't miss. If you haven't seen this one, you seriously need to treat yourself. Definitely worth a watch. And High Road to China will also make you wonder, what if? You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.